Hello, welcome to the third section of chapter 3. In this chapter, we are going to focus on you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Please bear in mind throughout this whole chapter, chapter 3, attack by stratagem, Sun Tzu, his main idea is whole and intact victory. Okay, please bear that in mind. And then let us move on to the next page. How to make sure that our generals, they have the external conditions, favorable conditions, that he can make, he is empowered, delegated to the best possible degree so that he can make the decisions based on his professional experiences and knowledge, information right on the spot. And here we are talking about the sovereign. There are three ways for him or her to interfere the commander or the general of his army. Here, as it is listed, there are three ways in which a ruler can bring misfortune upon his army. First, by commanding the army to advance or to retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. So first point, hobbling the army by the ruler, the sovereign. Second, by attempting to govern an army in the same way as he administers a kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions which obtain in an army. This causes the restlessness in the soldier's mind. Now, number 3, that would be by employing the officers of his army without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstances. This shakes the confidence of the soldiers. But when the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. So here, Sun Tzu listed 3 ways that a ruler, the sovereign, can interfere, can actually make the commander or the general out at the battlefield, their power actually diminished. So therefore, we as a ruler, we must provide our commanders, our generals, they have the full power, at least at the end of the day, not to interfere. And then, this is what we are, remember we are talking about whole and intact victory, and these are the conditions. Number 1, the sovereign should not interfere with the decision making by the commander on the spot. Now, if we move on to consider, we should also make sure that our commanders, they have the knowledge, whether they should start the war or not, or what kind of right decisions they would make. So here, let us look at this 5 elements for what we should know, the 5 essentials, remember, for the whole, intact, and complete victory. So these 5 elements, it is a kind of essential factors for the commander, for the general, to make judgment whether I can achieve this victory of whole, intact, and complete. Number 1, he will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. I would rather change the word when to whether to fight or whether not to fight. Here, remember in chapter 1, we were talking about 5 areas five analysis we need to make. This is number one, heaven. Whether the overall situation, the external circumstances and internal circumstances, they are favorable for us to fight to start the war. Number two, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. A little bit of controversies regarding this translation. Originally, Sun Tzu was saying a general should know how to use a bigger army or how to use a smaller army. Sometimes in a general, he wants to have very strong, big numbers of soldiers, a large army. However, sometimes we don't have that supplies. Then you simply have a very small number of soldiers. So as a general, you need to know how to use, whether it is a large army or a small army. Here, now, let's go back to chapter 1 again. This is actually what we call method and discipline in the 5 areas of analysis. Number 3, he will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. The moral law of the 5 areas in chapter 1. Can you remember? So, up to now, if you think what I have been talking about chapter 3, you think it is useful and interesting, please give me a like, forward to your friends, and also kindly subscribe to this program. Here, the moral law, once again. At least the soldiers and also the generals, we have these common goals, the same ideas towards the purpose that we are pursuing. Now, number 4, he will win who prepare himself, waits in order to take the enemy unprepared. This is in the 5 areas of analysis in chapter 1. We call it Ers. Now, let's move on to the last point, number 5. He will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. This is the commander. So, regarding this page, first thing that you need to pay attention is Sun Tzu is talking about we can know whether the victory belongs to us or not in advance, even prior to we start the war. So this is prior knowledge of our victory in the future. First point. Second point, these are the 5 essential elements for a general, the commander, to make a judgment whether there will be a whole and intact victory at the end of the day. So this is the 5 essential factors for us to know well in advance. Then we move on to the last paragraph of this section. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Here, 100 battles, right? I was talking about this in the previous paragraphs. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat, which means you know yourself, but you don't know your enemy. It is 50-50%, 50 to 50, whether you win or lose. But we look at the last part. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. 100% lose. Now, I would again draw your attention that remember in chapter 1, we were talking about SWOT analysis. We need to know the internal factors and also the external factors. Here, We know ourselves and we should know our opponents. So internal factors and external factors. That's first thing. Second thing, sometimes why here, if you look at the second part of this paragraph, why Sun Tzu is saying you know yourself, but even though you don't know your enemy, you still have this 50 to 50 possibilities to win the battle. Why he is talking about know yourself, but not the enemy? Because he is telling us don't spend too much time on your enemy. It's better for you to know yourself, which means sometimes it is really difficult for us to know ourselves very well. I was talking about Napoleon. Remember, he doesn't know himself very well, so he was taking hundreds of thousands French soldiers to conquer Moscow, and he did. But in the end, he lost the war. He won the battle, but lost the war. So this is regarding the second part of this paragraph. We are talking about it is really difficult to know ourselves very well. The other thing would be, if we are talking about business, try to pay your attention not only to your competitors. It's better that you would rather know your customers, know your suppliers better, so that you can perform, you can provide value addition to your customers. That would be even better. However, if you don't know either your competitors, your customers, your suppliers, and you don't know yourself either, then you will for sure lose in the competition. Here, Sun Tzu is actually talking about information is very important for us to have this whole intact and complete victory. Once again, this whole chapter we are talking about whole and intact victory by Sun Tzu. Okay, thank you so much for the time being with me, and see you in the next section. There will be the summary of this whole chapter 3. Thank you again. See you next time.